Whoa. Thank you so much, Kate. And that story is one of many incredible adventures I had when I was living. I lived in New Zealand from 1990 to 1994. The car was from 1980. But I have had some of the most extraordinary experiences of my life in this country, including the pleasure of meeting my life partner at a school camp at Navajo Lodge in the Bay of Plenty. I brought her back to the United States 18 years ago, and we visit New Zealand often. And I just can't thank you enough for inviting me here today to talk about the power of catalytic philanthropy. To represent my foundation's work and share what I believe are the most innovative ideas and strategies that are leading the field of philanthropy in the United States and across the world today. And I have to say New Zealand is on the cutting edge of philanthropy. It's small and a newer field here, but I've been so impressed when I took a look at the conference program. It makes a lot of American conferences just pale in comparison. And it's just a great thrill for me to be connecting my personal affection for New Zealand and my professional life here today for the first time. When I first met a really fantastic group of Kiwis at the Grantmakers for Effective Organizations Conference back in 2010, I really had no idea that it would someday lead to the opportunity to connect with over 300 individuals pursuing philanthropy here in New Zealand. And I'm just really happy to be able to be here today and to share my story with you and to learn from all of you over the next 2 days. I really believe that this moment marks an incredibly exciting time in our field, where people from my generation as well as young people from their 20s and 30s are taking a new kind of leadership role in the nonprofit sector, one that looks very different from the generation of leaders who came before us. This new giving generation has moved beyond traditional charity and established a commitment to using whatever a vehicle is available to us, in my case, my family foundation, to affect large-scale social change. We're no longer satisfied just to give. The simple writing of a check does not get the results we seek. So we have the desire to catalyze and actually lead the change we hope to see. And I'll talk today about how I brought a new approach to identifying funding priorities to my foundation and how our board has worked together, guided by both the traditions of the past and a vision for the future to embrace a strategy that I believe has really enabled us to have great impact in what we do. My work as a trustee and a staff member of the Tao Foundation has showed me that what seem like small contributions can in fact make a huge difference in the lives of individuals and in the systems that sometimes shape their lives. I know that you're all here today because you're committed to the mission of a foundation, a trust, or a nonprofit organization, and that you've likely chosen this field because you have a passion for what you do. But my generation does not feel that passion alone can achieve large-scale change. We use our organizations as research and development laboratories to come up with new workable ideas to try to address deep social problems. And I believe that this new, more entrepreneurial approach is quickly becoming the new tradition of philanthropy. Now, I have a few friends in this room, but most of you are meeting me for the first time today. I'm here because I have the great privilege of leading my family foundation, the Tao Foundation. The work we do is in a pursuit of the vision that all people should have the opportunity to enjoy a high quality of life and to have a voice in their community. Our guiding philosophy of the foundation is that we feel it is our obligation to alleviate pain and suffering, to offer opportunities for joy, and to help others achieve success in their own lives. The foundation was established in 1988 by my parents, who are now in their mid-80s. The foundation's early days were focused on enhancing the types of opportunities that made a vital difference in their own lives, and what they wanted for others. And what's unusual about our mission was the word I used earlier, obligation. My parents didn't just want to give back. They felt it was their duty to do so. They felt their own success had been dependent on their access to education, the opportunity to travel, exposure to the arts, and high-quality medical care for themselves and their loved ones. And from the beginning, the foundation has invested in groundbreaking medical research, educational and cultural institutions. My parents, Leonard and Claire Tao, who continue to be intimately involved in the foundation's work, had the great fortune of living a true American dream story. They were both born into quite severe poverty to immigrant parents in Brooklyn, New York, on the eve of the Great Depression. Against the will of their families, who hoped they would work to help support their struggling households, they both chose instead to take advantage of the free university education that was available in New York City at that time. And they met at Brooklyn College over 60 years ago, and that precious education paved the way to opportunities beyond anything they could ever have dreamed of. Theirs is a really long and wonderful story that I don't have time to fully tell you today, but it was a crooked path that led to where they are today. From my mother's living in a one-room basement apartment and my father's family needing money from the first sale in the family store in the morning in order to buy bread for breakfast, to building a successful business that in turn earned them enough to lead a very comfortable life. It's their choice to use that fortune to offer others the types of opportunities that launch them on their own road to success that truly inspires me. To practice the values that have taken me down my own crooked path, a path that's now allowed me to dedicate my life's work to the public good. And to bring me here in front of you today to speak before a group of people who are dedicated to so many important causes and institutions. My parents didn't realize, though, that inviting their 3 children onto the foundation's board would change things dramatically. My brothers and my upbringing was remarkably different from theirs, and our interests reflected that. Although we respected my parents' priorities, we had the need to connect with issues that were closer to our own lives. Growing up in more comfortable circumstances meant that we took some of the basic things in life, the things my parents truly struggled for granted. And we grew up in a time when a different kind of inequity began to emerge in our culture. It was less focused on the new immigrants' struggles and that shaped my parents' childhoods and whoa. Telepathically broken glass. Oh, and my talk needed a laugh. So what I was saying is we didn't really understand what it was like to grow up in poverty. And in those times, a good education and hard work was all you really needed to be successful. Our sensibility was based more on the new racial and ethnic lines drawn by both the civil rights movement and the realities of our own childhoods in the 1960s and 70s. And like many young people, our interests were focused on large societal problems like racial discrimination and poverty. We wanted to address social justice issues and push to add disadvantaged youth and families to the Foundation's grant-making portfolio. And eventually our board went deeper still to focus on young people who have been involved with the juvenile justice system. So you might be thinking, what was that last thing? Did she say they help juvenile delinquents? Because it sounds like an unnatural combination, right? Many foundations support education, the arts, medicine, all truly admirable and important causes. But kids who've broken the law, it's not a traditional or a popular cause. And people often ask me, how did you decide to work with this population? And it really required combining the best ideas from both generations represented on our board. And I'd like to tell you a little story that I think will help you understand how we got there. And I call it the tale of two Emilies. So the first Emily is a young girl with interests and passions. She lives in a financially stable home with two loving parents who believe in her and offer her opportunities to enjoy cultural experiences, get the best education, and the security of a true safety net. When Emily was younger, she had ambition and high expectations about what life would bring, but not necessarily the drive or the know-how to make it happen, and that caused her to make a lot of mistakes along the way. But nobody who met Emily focused on her failures, and she had all the opportunities in the world. And she was on a path that almost ensured she was headed for a successful life. People looked at her and they knew she would do well. They perceived her life had value, so they helped her along the way. When she made mistakes, it was assumed she would do better next time. And when she failed, people said, failure happens to the best of us. You can learn from your mistakes. And they gave her the help she needed, and she did do better next time. And so it went through the bumpy road of adolescence and early adulthood, and all the time with the safety net and the encouragement of the adults she encountered. So I wonder what happened to her. More on that later. Because the second Emily is also a young girl with interests and passions. But she's the child of a homeless, poor single mother living on the streets in a blighted Connecticut city. Her father's missing. He was never present in her life. This Emily also had ambition and high expectations of what life would bring, but without the support or the resources. Because she had none of the opportunities of the first Emily, everyone who saw her figured there was no way she was headed for a successful life. So even though secretly inside she had hopes and dreams too, nobody asked about them. When she made mistakes, she was punished. When she failed, people said, you messed up and now you need to pay the price. No one even noticed that Emily had been absent from school for 2 years until she ended up in a detention center for truancy at the age of 13. In detention, she was held under deplorable conditions, confined to herself for 21 hours a day. While she was there waiting for the court to figure out what to do with her next, she got no schooling, no psychological support, no recreation. Although she had committed no crime, Emily was denied the most basic human dignity. So I wonder what happened to her. Okay, so if you didn't guess, the first Emily is me. And my path led me here, from a college education to travel, professional life that has enabled me to devote my life to helping others. And at the helm of my foundation, I've been party to many remarkable accomplishments, including the reform of the juvenile justice system in the state of Connecticut, where Emily was held. It's my job as the foundation executive to work for the public good. But it's the second Emily who's the person who really sparked my interest in trying to make major changes in our society by reforming systems like the juvenile justice system. She inspired a class action suit filed in 1993 by public interest attorneys called the Emily J. lawsuit. So the coincidence is really quite remarkable. And that lawsuit eventually ensured that Connecticut's youth now receive quality therapeutic services while in detention. And learning her story was a compelling first step for my board toward changing the nature of our work. Emily and I are similar in many ways, but oh so different. I'm here before you today, and quite frankly, I am not sure where the other Emily ended up. But I know how important her legacy is, and it inspired us to take on this goal of reforming the juvenile justice system. And today, Connecticut's court-involved youth have the right to, and in fact are given, the basic human dignities that Emily was denied. Our system has been truly transformed over the past 2 decades, and I have a really strong hunch that the Tao Foundation has played an important role, but I am 100% sure that Emily played an even more important role. And we have her to thank for the fact that Connecticut has embraced the Tao Foundation's belief that no child is beyond help. that although the circumstances of a child's life make it appear that he or she does not have the potential to be successful, they do actually have that potential. When I meet young people in programs and prisons, I can see that they have ambitions and interests just like I did when I was their age. They've made mistakes like I did too, and they probably have no idea where their life will lead them, just like any typical adolescent. But they are not beyond help. They inspire me every day to do all that's in my power to offer them the opportunities and the safety net that I had, and that every child needs and deserves. I've been able to do that through what we're calling catalytic philanthropy. Now, I made that sound like it was a simple transition, but it was a huge leap for my board to take up this very unsexy cause we had no previous experience with, to help kids who pulled very few heartstrings. And it's this transition that defines how we move from traditional charity to giving for impact. And Emily's story inspired us to work toward a better justice system, to deal with young people who make mistakes. And this is where the ideals of my generation influenced how we took up that challenge. Up to that point, our board had worked within our comfort zone. We limited our grants to areas where we already had knowledge and passion. And we funded programs that helped small groups of people, and felt the need to see direct evidence of how these programs affected individual lives. Sound familiar? But we found that supporting one person at a time and responding to grant requests alone was really not helping us to achieve significant results. If we were going to not just help 15 or 50 people, but whole communities, we needed to do things differently. I suggested we emulate my parents' successful business career by taking on a more entrepreneurial approach to the work. And we began to ask nonprofit and system leaders what deeply affected their futures and their clients' well-being. We asked what really excited them and what they dreamt about but would never think to ask us for. We used those answers to identify where the potential was to do more, have greater impact, and possibly affect systems change. And it led us to look at methods that were new to us and identify this sector of young people, juvenile delinquents, whose society was literally throwing away. People said to me, oh, it's too late for them, this 13 and 14-year-old kids. So we quickly realized that this group of people was truly suffering, and we felt we could really help them. So this approach is not a traditional way for a foundation to do business, and it's certainly not the way a family foundation usually works. But we felt the need to listen, learn, and become more proactive in areas where others were paying no attention. We looked beyond our comfort zone and we asked, where could our investments really make the biggest difference? And asking that question requires an openness and a willingness to listen, to really listen, and to act upon what's heard. A lot of us ask questions, but we don't necessarily really hear what people say. And it's a bold move to change what you think is the right thing to do and listen to those who are actually doing the work. And it really flies in the face of the way philanthropy is usually practiced, where foundations decide what they think is right and then pursue those ideas. And it pushed us to think beyond making grants to direct service organizations. We found that in order to change systems, we needed to engage our partners in government, join and support networks, and to fund advocates who could lobby and write new legislation. And from this experience, we learned that our family's interest and expertise could guide us in really strategic and leveraged grant making for the first time. And that we were in a unique position to actually catalyze and lead the change that could benefit large groups of people instead of just 15 or 50. We saw our dream to help tens of thousands of individuals become a real possibility for the first time. Now the Tao Foundation is deeply invested in programs, services, and advocacy efforts to continually improve the juvenile justice system in our own state and beyond. And we've had tremendous success in the state of Connecticut, where thousands of young people each year are now offered quality rehabilitative services and treatment instead of costly and ineffective punishment, and incarceration. And for the past 2 years, I've been working to replicate that success in New York. I'm proud to say that we've been able at our foundation to foster a mutual respect across 2 generations. It's enabled us to play a role where our board works together, learning alongside each other and building consensus. And we're now on the cusp of engaging the 3rd generation in our work. There are 8 grandchildren in our family, and my goal on bringing them on board is to teach them not just what we've done in the past, but to encourage them to share their own ideas. We hope they'll join us in discovering new ways to address the issues we all care about. Now, we're not a huge institution like Gates or Rockefeller Foundations. We're just a small family foundation, but we've really been able to have big impact through our investments and actions. And I firmly believe that the roles you're all playing within the wide array of wonderful organizations you represent also have that potential. And if you're not already playing a catalytic role, I hope you'll consider doing so. When we commit to be bold, to devote ourselves to improving the conditions that allow others to reach their full potential, we'll definitely change the world for the better. And the added bonus is we'll likely really enjoy ourselves along the way. So thank you so much for inviting me to share my story, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and answering questions. And now I'm so excited to hear from Sir Stephen Tyndall about his family story and your incredible contributions to New Zealand. So thank you.